Beginning in the late 1940s and lasting throughout the second half of the 20th century, America found itself at odds with the communist power of the Soviet Union. This conflict of the Cold War took on new heights as the challenger power looked to the skies and embraced space exploration. The space race, as it was called, saw a turning point when the U.S. Apollo 11 mission successfully brought man to the moon, showcasing America's prominence and symbolizing a victory for the free world. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong was the first human to have walked on the moon. The famous quote,
"That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind,"
was said during this amazing moment in the United States history.
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff, we have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. 40 feet down, 2.5, picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down, fake shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. Down a half. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The LEM footpads are only impressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the LEM now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Tony, this is so great you can't believe it. I believe it, Charlie. It's raining, John. Okay, let's go, would you, Charlie? You got all your steering and get straight. Oh, this is going to be some kind of different ride. Hippity hoppity, hippity hopping over hill and dale. Da 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 da. Hippity hopping along. 1, ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good.
We're burning flat.
That's
Roger,
right.
Looks good, flight.
Observation shot flight.
Roger.
Descending. Stand by for splashdown. Recovery, America, stable water, and the cruise go.
Walking on the moon was a spectacular achievement for America, not only because it was an accomplishment of successfully traveling to outside our world and back, but also because it proved to the rest of the world that the United States was superior to the Soviet Union. From 1945 till 1991, the United States and the Soviet Union were in an intense relationship in which they both tried to outdo the other country. This was not only in space exploration, but also in academics, sports, and more. They each wanted to prove to the rest of the world that they were the better country with the greater political method and just generally superior. This tension was known as the Cold War. As stated in the book, Dark Side of the Moon,
"We are not the only ones who know the moon can be reached. We are not the only ones who are planning to go there. The race is on and we'd better win it because there is absolutely no way to stop an attack from outer space. The first country that can use the moon for launching of missiles will control Earth. That, gentlemen, is the most important military fact of this century."
This quote inspired the public to help achieve their goal of getting to the moon before any other country. This explains how important it is to show to the world that the United States of America is superior to any other foreign nations, and walking on the moon put America in a giant lead. However, the process of getting to this position was a giant struggle. For example, during the beginning of the expedition, the lunar module was facing one technical problem after another. From the beginning, engineers at the Grumman Corporation in Bethpage, Long Island, had struggled to keep the lander's weight from exceeding forbidden limits. There were other problems too: faulty wiring, corroded metal, and most serious of all, trouble with the LM's ascent rocket. And when the first named lunar module was shipped to the Cape in June, quality control inspectors found 100 separate defects. At NASA, no one who had heard the reports on the lander were happy with the situation. Apollo 8, the Allen's first manned flight, would almost certainly be delayed beyond the end of the year. The engineers designed a new plan that was simple, astounding, and altered the course of the moon program. The quiet engineering genius, George Low, oversaw the development of the spacecraft from Houston. 2 weeks before Apollo 11, the Soviets had had a disastrous flop. The entire launch pad of the rocket exploded during ignition. On July 13th, the Soviets sent an unmanned Luna 15 that was sent on a mission to bring back moon dust. This mission was a success, and therefore the mission for humans to go up seemed clear. A few days later, moon fever struck several million spectators. 3,000 press members and over 600 million TV viewers watched the final preparations with bated breath. At 9:32 a.m. local time on July 16th, the liftoff occurred. 2 hours and 44 minutes after launch, the Apollo 11 soared out of the Earth's orbit and into the universe. The three men stayed inside and up on the moon for the next 3 days. 3 days before Apollo 11 had been launched, the Soviet Luna 15 craft passed overhead. Their intention was to reach the moon before Apollo could and grab a soil sample and quickly return it back to the Earth, beating the Americans and claiming that Russia was the first country to have reached the moon. As stated before, the Cold War was not only about space travel, but also politics. Each country wanted to prove their superiority.
America was an imperialist community, a form of government in which the upper class manufacture all the trading and little businesses and the country survives of them. Russia, on the other hand, was a communist, in which is a revolutionary socialist movement to create a classless and stateless social order structured upon common ownership of the means of production, as well as a social, political, and economic ideology that aims at the establishment of the social order.
In one of the books written by Andrew Smith, he states,
"At least the communists were doing what they could for their people, unlike the fascists who tend to choose every time. So you can argue about whether it made sense, about whether it was right or wrong, but in fact it was, and it scared people. And that's why we went to the moon, to demonstrate American technological preeminences in competition with the Soviet Union."
As clearly stated, the tension between America and the Soviet Union was no settled matter. The Cold War ended in 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall. There is no official winner of the Cold War, but in many perspectives you could say that America won. The economy of the Soviet Union was slowly declining. The communism of the country did not work well, and eventually the Soviet Union fell. The fall of the Soviet Union ended the Cold War. After this, the United States became known as a world superpower, meaning that that country holds the most power throughout the globe. The United States still remains as the world superpower, and it is predicted to remain that way for at least another decade. In the 1960s, walking on the moon was a huge accomplishment only for America. Today, the spacewalk is still a huge accomplishment for America, as well as the rest of the world, as we all look forward to a bright future exploring the rest of the universe.